so glad that I have a special guest here. I don't even know what to say. Her name is Quita.
Yeah.
And I am excited for you to meet her and to hear a little bit about comparison, because that is a topic of today, which is a comparison focus. So, Quita, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, I guess in some settings or circles, some people would say that I'm a Christian influencer.
Yeah, you are. How many followers do you have?
I don't know, like 150,000 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people would say that I'm a Christian influencer, but I mean, really topical. I am a wife and a mom of over a decade. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do all the things, and I love God. I think my biggest title is daughter, because we can pick up a lot of titles, but I think that's the most important for me.
Nice. So I always ask you this question. It's kind of when we get together in a coffee shop, and that is, what is God doing in your life? It's my favorite one.
He is, many things, but I think the biggest thing in this season is he's working on my heart. He's done a good job over the last decade of working on my hands. He's allowed me to be part of a lot of things that I could produce. So I've made things and created things and worked on teams and worked in church, and I've created a lot of things with my hand. But right now he's definitely on a heart season of making sure that my heart can be grounded and prepared for the next leg. So even as I go, like I create content and I work in my church and things like that, it's a heart season for me. So I'm happy to be in the garden.
Aww. Do you hear that? Okay, I love that. And with a heart season happening, to be in the garden, you have to really prune some things off that
Always.
the Lord, he wants you to let go of, so that way he can give you more things and he can give you more fruit to bear.
Yeah.
So even in the midst of that, that's great that you're in this season, and it's great that we're talking about what we're talking about, because I think it's very necessary for all people, especially in this specific era. So we live in a world of comparison at every single turn.
Yeah.
I can wake up in the morning and I can just scroll on my phone and I am comparing my life automatically to someone else's who I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I find it to be very difficult to turn that off unless I know how to turn that off and be okay with still looking at social media.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, or a lot of believers, are running a race of looking at someone else's race without looking at their own, or their own lane, I should say.
Facts.
And it has become, or resulted in, a copy of what someone else should look like. You know, this is a side note. When I see people out all the time, I actually thought about this the other day and it just frustrated me. I saw everybody wearing straight leg jeans with what is this? Not a cow neck, or what is the neck that shows off your shoulders? Either way, a shirt that showed off like your shoulders.
Yeah.
And that frickin' Lululemon bag in front of everybody's body. And I was just like, this is so unoriginal.
It is.
Like, you can look at someone else and they can influence you to do something, and now as a result everybody's wearing it. But when I see someone that has like the most dopest outfit that doesn't even look like everyone else, I'm like, they are confident in walking in who their calling and their purpose is, because they're being 100% authentically them without a flushed influence of scrolling on our phone.
You know why? I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
So it is because we need somewhere to get our identity from. Like we crave that. And we craved it from the original garden. Like when Eve was in the garden, she wanted her identity from somewhere. And that's how the snake was able to confuse her. He said, do you want to be like God? I can show you how to be like something. And when I think about social media and I think about the internet and just look at each other, we want to be like something.
Yeah.
If the Kardashians decided they're wearing sweats, then we want to wear sweats, right?
Yeah.
And if everybody decides that now we wear half zips because hoodies aren't cool anymore, we want to wear half zips because we want to be like something. And the hard thing about originality and the internet and just the time and the age is like, we want to be like everything but ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And the thing is, the image that we were created in is God. And that there's such a gap in between it because there's instability. It's like, what if myself is not liked? What if myself is not invited? What if myself is not the one that gets the followers or the attention or the marriage or the relationship? What if being myself is not enough?
Wow.
And there's an internal craving for being enough, being good. And then, you know, we all sit back and we, in a different vantage point, like these couches is like, well, what is good?
Right.
Who decides what good is? Who decides what is acceptable, what is fashionable, what is creative,
Yeah.
what is cute, what is beautiful? Who decides that? And then the people who do decide that, they get control, they get power that we've given that doesn't belong to them.
That's really good. And it almost goes back to when you talked about that, it goes back to your worth, like what is good, all of those things. So I feel like it's a big, like this is just a small little dot within the ocean, like a small sand pebble within a big sea, because you have to know who you are and whose you are to even be comfortable in that space to be like, okay, this person or this comparison factor doesn't even bother me.
Yeah.
And I always think about, we're so valuable as people. Our worth is so vital. And when you think about a piece of paper, right? And if it's a Mona Lisa,
Yeah.
and the Mona Lisa is beautiful in all of its right of however the painting, however that even goes, because I don't even know all the ins and outs to that. But when you copy it, it loses value, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
And so a lot of times we're sitting here just copying pieces of paper because we think that it's good, but at the end of the day, it's lost its value when we don't know that we are the actual Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
If everybody figured out in their life that they are the walking Mona Lisa, how would you walk different? You know? And comparison, it shatters who you are, because you, like you said, you look at yourself and say, am I good? Is this good enough? And it reminds me of two things. One story in the Bible that I think that is vital to this, and that's Matthew 25:14. And it talks about the parable of the money. So one person was given 5 talents, 10, 5, 2. 10, 5, 2. There we go. 10, 5, and 2. And it's like the person with 1 did nothing with it because they thought the person with 10 had everything. Like they thought whatever was given to them was not good enough. And a lot of times we look to other people and say, wow, they're doing so much, but I have nothing within my own self. And I'm going to relate it to this.
Go for it. I'm sitting here and eating of the fruit. Go.
Okay. So I want to relate it to this. A Apple phone.
Yeah.
A actual apple.
Yeah.
Right. And then there is a seed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's how I feel like the 10, 5, and 2 is. Somebody that has the shiny looking Apple iPhone, the person with the seed is like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this seed? But they don't realize whatever this has been given to them to do, that's for them.
Yeah.
And then the person who has the apple, they can actually multiply it if they want to, because if they realize you can cut it, you can do so many different things with it. And there's also seed within it to produce other trees. And then there's the people with the seed, and it's like, wow, so my calling in life is to cultivate the land and put the seed in the ground so that it'll grow. And I always think, what are we doing with God what are you doing with God has given like to you? I said that really wrong, but what are you doing with what God has given to you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Oh, you mean me?
Yeah.
I thought it was rhetorical. I mean, it's so hard. You know, as though when I think about it, it's like we live this life conquest journey of like trying to figure out like, God, why am I here? Mm-hmm. And it is very easy to think that like I'm because source, right? Like you want to know like, is it the stage? Is it the platform? Is it the book? Is it the writing? Is it to be a mom? Is it to be a wife? And then when those things don't happen, it's like, God, did you not have function for me? Did you not have purpose for me? Mm-hmm. But I think the big thing, like even going back to that parable about the seeds in the ground, is so often we try and protect what God has given us because it doesn't look like what everybody else has.
Very good.
Because that's what the servant said. He said, "Oh, master, I didn't want to like squander your things." And it's like, what was your perception of yourself? Like, it had to be that he looked at himself and thought that he was not good enough to even use what he had. And then you sit back and you hold on to your seat so tight and you watch everybody else around you. You watch them sow and build and reap, and they're starting the podcast and they're starting the book, and you're like, but master, not me. There is no way. For me, I mean, I have tried and I've done many things. Yeah. It's very awkward. Like, it's an awkward thing trying to talk about like, oh yeah, this is what I've done. Because one of the things that I told my pastors recently was that I know the experience that I'm having, 90% of people are not.
Wow.
Like, I know most people are not navigating through walking out what they believe God is calling them to do in their life. Because we're looking for source. We're looking for identity. And at the root of comparison is there's an identity issue.
Right.
So there are so many of these issues that we navigate in day out, is that they're just byproducts of other issues, right? Like, it's not that you have a comparison issue, it's you have an identity issue, right? You have a worth issue, you have a self-esteem issue, you have a relationship with God issue. Because when you think about how you relate to father, if you can't see yourself as daughter, you'll always have problems with your sister.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, it's like, it's because it's so much deeper. Like, and one of the big things that I've did over that I am doing, so I'm gonna go heart work, I'm not gonna go with the work of my hands, is that I'm always trying to find the root. Like, when that feeling creeps up and you're looking at somebody, you're like, I don't like that. You know, well, God, what is the root of that? Like, is it that another part of my heart hurts? Is it that, because most often when we go into these comparison traps, it has nothing to do with other people. Like, that's the thing about the parable of the talent. It had nothing to do with the 10-talent servant or the 5-talent servant.
Right.
It had everything to do with the internal work and the root issues of the 2-talent servant. That they were struggling. What happened in the garden with Eve? She was struggling. Like, most often when we see these parallels throughout the Bible, it is the internal struggles that the people are having, not the external situations around them. Yeah. And the faster we do these things in the garden, that's where we are. Yeah, we're here. The faster we do these things in the garden, the faster we do the internal work, the easier. The external stuff is easy.
That's right.
It just gets easy, faster, much faster.
Very true. Very true. That's really good. And wow, yeah. So the passage is, when David killed Goliath, David was very rewarded, or people were noticing David. Of course. And he killed a 10-foot giant, or a 7-8 foot, however big Goliath was, with a stone. So from that, King Saul, he became, in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 6 to be exact.
Let's give us the text. Okay? Give us the book.
He was so the women were coming out singing, talking about David. Like, David, I want to get this 100%.
Singing because I love it. There's like a little chant with it. Like,
right, I know.
They were chanting David's names in the street.
Yes, they literally were saying, they danced, and the women sang. First of all, David loved a woman. Anyway, but I know we're not going to come for David.
Don't go there.
So
David loved a woman.
So they were saying, they danced and they sang, Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. Like, imagine that in a trap music.
There is one.
That's a TikTok.
It's a TikTok.
That's a TikTok happening, right?
Yeah.
And from that, Saul became jealous.
Yeah.
And everything that Saul's focus became David instead of the things that he was killing. And it's like, in our everyday, we are Saul or David.
Every day. And I want let me back you up. Let's go back. Let's go backwards. Let's go back through Samuel, right? Do not ask me book, chapter, verse. Maybe you'll put it on the screen. But listen, so the story of David, right? Mm-hmm. We go back to when David was at Jesse's house, before he even gets the moment where he slays anything, right? Mm-hmm. And Samuel the prophet Samuel, who is of one of the greatest prophets of the Bible, looked at everyone he saw and he could not pick out David. Mm-hmm. He said, oh, it must be this one because this one's tall. oh, it must be this one. This one looks like King Saul, so he must be the next one in line. No, no. There are so many of us who are waiting for somebody to pick us out and tell us that we're good and tell us that we're called and tell us that we're anointed. And that's going to be the defining line to say like, oh yeah, I'm anointed.
Yep.
God called me. Prophet couldn't pick him up in a lineup. So there's somebody like, man, I don't know why she got the solo. Why didn't I get the solo? I must be nothing.
I can't sing better than her then.
I can't sing better than her. Or it must be that because this person has been called to platform or because this person's the person that everybody called out, then they must be better than me.
And can we just pause right there?
Go ahead.
Not
don't go for the
everyone
singers.
is called to a platform. Can we say that? Because I just get so irritated. Like maybe you're called to be with the youth ministry and that is your assignment, but neither of what person's assignment is lesser than the other.
It is literally that you have one assignment.
Brainwashed.
We are brainwashed. You were created to glorify God.
That's right.
If your life glorifies God, then you are on assignment. Period. Like there's nothing else. Everyone is not called, like you have been brainwashed by Americanized Christianity.
TikTok and Instagram, Facebook.
And lots of pulpits and stages around the world in women's conferences and men's conferences that everybody like, just push, just do, just go. You will write the book. Everybody's not called to do all the things. Like it's the truth and nobody wants to say. But
Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just saying, like, why does everybody always say, well, if you just write the book or if that's the top three, if you can just write the song, I'm like, well, there is more than just a song and a book out here. Like that just
we do not know who's one of your favorite. I was about to use this person, somebody's favorite. Let's use Billy Graham, right? We don't know who got Billy Graham saved.
Very true.
We don't know. We don't probably even know Billy Graham's mother's name. Somebody does. We don't. I do not. Right? We do not know the people who are in position for God to use to platform Billy Graham. But all of it goes to their account.
Yep.
You have to believe that your life is in position to get God's glory to be done on the earth.
That's right.
That you're in line. There is somebody, even in this podcast, like we're recording a podcast, there is somebody who's filming a podcast. Like Azelle has somebody here working right now, right? Who's helping to make this happen.
Yes.
There's somebody who's going to receive this podcast who does not know the name of the people who are on the other side of producing the podcast.
Yeah.
The person who receives this podcast and whose life has changed goes to their account. We don't put value on that in America.
That's true.
We don't put value on that in the faith, that everybody, it goes to our account because your life is to glorify God. What are all the action steps towards it? So the thing is, even when David was in the field, modern day Christianity would say, oh, you ain't doing nothing yet.
Very true.
You ain't putting nothing out. Why you haven't dropped nothing yet? You just out here with the sheep. He said, I learned how to kill a Philistine before because I first killed a lion and a bear protecting sheep in my father's house.
Training ground.
Yep. And we discredit everything. Like, what if you just were
chills?
What if you
were
just
face.
good at what God called you to?
Yeah.
There are so many of us, I'm like, God has a lot of us in a loop because we can't be good at what he called us to. We are poor stewards in America. Let me tell you about byproduct issues. One of the byproduct issues of comparison is stewardship. You cannot steward right now. You can't steward what you see in the mirror. You can't steward that God asks you to just do this. You can't steward singleness. And it's like, God, help me be a better... I didn't want to go singleness. I couldn't think of...
I'm just kidding.
Because we know... And the reason why is because I know how marriage and motherhood has become an idol to Christian women in America.
Oh, 100%.
Proverbs
31. I'm sorry. I cannot with one of those T-shirts. Go ahead. Continue.
Proverbs 31 has become an idol. We have abused it in America to make it an idol. What will you do if God did not call you to be a wife? What if that is your truth? And I always go back to the Hebrew boys every time. It's like, even if my God does not deliver me from this season of life, I still will not bow.
Yeah.
There are so many of us who have chosen social media to be our new God, and we bow to it.
Yeah.
It is the platform of Baal. I mean, take it from an influencer.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, and it's like we bow day over day.
Every so often. Yeah.
Screen time just going up.
Yeah.
Up.
Yeah.
Up. I put a time limit on mine because and it don't work.
Me too, but I can just literally click, okay.
More time.
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to do it in 15-minute increments. You would hit 15-minute increments 5 times. That was an hour, babe. You did not. You still looked at social media.
Right.
You found your God.
Mm-hmm. And people have been starting to place their God in, I'm not going to use names.
Don't use no names.
No
other than
names.
Billy Graham.
Right. And other people that they see that it's like, I don't even have to pick up this because I can swipe for 10 minutes and find what I need and what they're telling me that I need. But it's like you're allowing them to quote unquote cut you, but they haven't done, they're making ash.
Oh man. Azel's coming. You found your gods.
Yeah.
We have made influencers, leaders, our gods. Mm-hmm. And I put this out like a couple months ago and it just came back. It was like, you are more concerned about the man of God than the son of God.
Very true.
And when I say man of God, I mean the pastors, influencers.
Mm-hmm.
It is the word of God that delivers people.
Mm-hmm.
It is nothing that you can consume on social media. It may inspire you.
Ugh, I hate all gas preachers. Keep going. Keep going.
If you follow us on social media, if you follow us on the internet, if you watch this podcast, this is relief. It's not restoration.
That's right. That's very true.
This will give you a moment so you can feel your breath again. You can catch your wind again. It'll make you even aware. I have a comparison issue.
Mm-hmm.
I have an issue with how I see myself. You're aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is the word of God that changes. It's the cut.
And from that, I want to say this. We can have the conviction in the moment of, I have a comparison issue.
Yeah.
But if we don't stick to the commitment of fixing the issue, the conviction is just like a puff and a vapor.
You just go back to your favorite influencer, and your favorite influencer is on the next topic. Your favorite influencer is now talking about daddy issues.
Right.
And you still got a comparison issue. So now you got a comparison issue and a daddy issue. Now you're aware of 2 things. Let's come back tomorrow and see what we're going to be aware of tomorrow.
Yeah.
But what is the Lord trying to do? That's why I was like, the Lord can do so much with your hands, but he can do a lot more with your heart.
That's right.
We look all through the Bible how people build beautiful monuments for God to be nowhere near them. Mausoleums is what we build in America. I look at my own followers sometimes. Sometimes I just scroll through and see who's following. I'm like, I'm building a mausoleum.
She does have some really great influencers following
everybody,
her.
Some people.
CC Winans liked one of her things. I was like, what?
Fanika friend followed me the other day, and I was like,
who's that?
She's a pastor. Okay. She's a pastor, and I'm like,
that's crazy.
Why would you follow me? But there are some. But I look through sometimes. I'm like, I'm building mausoleums, which means that I am building spaces for dead people to live.
You love this term of the mausoleums because I've heard you talk about this before.
It's one of my key things. Like it is.
So, okay. So I'm going to ask you in this regard, as an influencer,
I'm an influencer
in the space of you're showing people what they can do.
Yeah.
You're following them back to the word.
Yeah.
What do you do when people find refuge or restoration on your page? What do you tell them? What do you... No, refuge.
Don't.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I'm big on like if the people that you follow are not pushing you back to the word, it's dangerous.
Very true.
It's dangerous. I should not give you enough where you don't have to go follow God.
But and that's the sad part because for most of people today, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I fix my focus back on the Lord with dealing with this comparison issue?
I would say the biggest thing is one of the biggest things that have helped me over the years, and what I would advise anybody, like if I was talking to anybody's consecration, right? You have to cut things off to figure out if you're addicted to them. You cannot find out if you're addicted to something as you look at it.
Very true.
If you're using, you don't know you're addicted. You only know you're addicted to something when it's cut off. Sugar.
That's easy.
Right. Like if you're like, not even hard stuff, sugar. If you decide like, hey, I'm not gonna have sugar for a week, and you start feeling like, ooh, I don't feel good, you have a sugar addiction. If you have to keep putting 15 minutes in your phone every 5 minutes when you're supposed to be on a screen time limit, you have a social media addiction. You are addicted. And the thing is, then let's talk about byproducts. You're not addicted to social media. You're addicted to looking at other people's stuff. Or you're addicted to not looking yourself in the face. Or you're addicted to not doing what God told you to do because you need a filler to fill the moment so you can not do what you're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
I am currently in a season of writing. When I don't want to write, I go look at social media. What?
Why?
Because you're avoiding what God told you to do. Like that's all that is. It's like I need something to fill this space. So I can go look and see, oh, well, look at her. She's doing makeup tutorials. Maybe I should do a makeup tutorial. Right. Like it's real. Like
it's very real.
I have tons of followers on TikTok and Instagram, and I decided a couple weeks ago, I was like, I'm gonna do some fashion content. Why are you doing that? Right?
Because you saw someone else do it.
I was like, I could do that. And then the thing is, I did it and it went great. And I did another one and it went great. And I was like, I could do this. What are you doing? You know, I mean, like the Holy Spirit was like, what is this?
Oh, but I want to go to that too, because it makes me think of reward. And how a lot of times we can do something that other people are doing and it can be great, but what's the reward? Like, who is the reward? Are we rewarding ourselves or is the reward going straight to the Lord? Yeah. And a lot of times, like you said, we can try to do something that someone else is doing, but our reward could just be for us. So it becomes self-worship and self-idolizing on the inside.
And I think sometimes the rewards are there. Like you could build a big platform. You could
monetary.
You could you could have a big conference. You could do everything it could happen. But what did God say?
Yeah.
And that's my constant question. I have been in several opportunities to mentor people and walk with people. And my question is always, but what is the Lord saying?
Right.
People look like, why can't I grow? Why can't I do this? Why can't I figure it out? Well, what's the Lord saying?
And why are you listening to other people instead of the Lord?
Because you're here for me to just get another person to idolize. You want me to tell you, you want to compare your journey to what you've seen happen in it's not the same. Like I will tell you, like literally, the Lord has told me your path will not be the same. And it has been disappointing to me. And I know that God can handle my disappointment. Now, what he desires for me is to not be disappointed in his way going forth. That is the maturity. You talk about spiritual maturity is not being disappointed when God does what he says he's going to do, even if it's not what you want. Because a lot of us, we'll let God have his way because he don't have it regardless. We'll let God have his way, but we're disappointed. We're sad because it didn't happen for us the way we thought. We're sad because we didn't get the space or the room or the opportunity or the conference or the engagement or the spouse or the child or whatever you have on this prayer list that you really made a Santa Claus list. Like we're mad. It's true. It's like, hey, Lord, here's my order. And that's Americanized Christianity. Like that's one thing I'm learning day and day is like that's here with us. Like we have Americanized that we get to send a Santa list into God. And then we try and pretend that we're waiting on him patiently.
While we're doing this.
While we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to figure out the 5 steps and the 5 ways and the 6 reasons of how. And we've found all these like Pinterest boards on how to access God's promise. There was never a time in the Bible where somebody's 6 ways or 3 steps or 6-step method or you got a new life coach to get yourself to God.
Say that.
That was never.
Say that.
It's not real.
Right.
This stuff is fake, guys. I just want to and it goes
real. And I want to keep going on that because it goes into counterfeits. And this could just go and take a rabbit trail, by itself because that counterfeit becomes a byproduct of comparison. Because what we've done is in Christianity, we have gone to people that have more wisdom than us, or that can be like, can you speak into my life? Because we're so addicted to getting what we want on our social media. So we go to the quote unquote prophets that we know.
I knew you were going to go there.
Oh yeah. We go to those people and say, I'm just having a hard time. What is the Lord saying? You go to him. You don't go to, now there's a difference with like, I have a mentor and they know what's happening in my life. That's totally different. But when
Slightly different.
Slightly, but there's something
worship their
about
mentors.
instant gratification in our world, because I can just go to someone else and get a word. I don't have to wait. I don't have to ask. I don't have to wait. And then I don't have to ask and wait for the promise that God is going to give to me and then be okay with the answer.
We whore out the prophetic, and then we wonder why we're abused and manipulated.
Say that 100%. And that's why so many people are falling to, I'm going to go there, crystals, tarot cards.
Because we want to skip the line.
That's right.
We want access to what God has faster than what he's like, because human behavior is that we want to make, it's the reason why we want to make sense of what can't be made sense.
That's right.
We want to understand, God, why them? Why me? Why not? Why 2 years? Why did I write something in a journal in 2013 and it still hasn't come to pass in 2023? Why did it take 10 years for me to still not see the fruit of this promise? We want to understand.
Yeah.
And because we can't make that, and I hate to say that, I do not believe that the Lord won't answer most of us. It's that we do not choose him as first regards for the answer.
That's right.
We worship our mentors. We worship leadership. And the thing is, you have a God who so deeply wants to hear from you.
That's right.
There is the secrecy and the intimacy with God is one of the easiest ways to fix your focus.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, to get in the cave.
Your place.
Like, every time. That's why David got to stay David. Most of the men and women, or mostly men, who fell in the Bible, they were never restored. They just fell. It was David's heart that he kept going back to God that allowed him to be restored.
Yeah.
Not without consequence or punishment. But
very true.
Not without consequence. But it is that we don't crave intimacy with God. We crave access to his blessings.
We don't crave the waiting. And it's so much blessing in the waiting. Like, in the process of it all, you don't recognize, but you're picking up things that's going to help you to go to your next space, but we just want the next space. But he's like, let me show you why that it took me this long. These are the reasons why. And then when you get over there, you're like, that's why this happened, and that's why this happened. Because sometimes we can't even handle the blessing that God's going to give us because we're so busy, like, okay, God, and now. And he's like, nope, because you need to prune this, this, and this to get here, because then the next place I'm going to take you, you're going to have to, like, it's a journey with
There are some of us who, if God gave us what we prayed for, if God gave us what we prayed for, we would lose our minds.
100%.
I have a laundry list of prayers. I'm like, I see why you didn't give me that.
Right.
Because
right.
it was bad for me. It wasn't good for me.
He knows what we can handle.
He knows what we can handle. He knows what he can trust us with. Even back to the parable of the talents, he says he gave all of those talents out according to their own ability.
Yeah.
He knew what we have to believe that God is better at it than us. He's a better father. He's a better writer. He's better at the algorithm. He's better at all these things than us. And if he hasn't given it to us, then it's not for us.
Yeah.
Fixing your focus means I focus on what God wants for me. I desire his will. Now, I'm not going to say that's like, I feel like on the flip side of like Christians, we all like try and make it seem like it's easy. Like, oh yeah, we just desire his will. Whatever you say, Lord, help me.
That's right.
Help me want your will. Help me want your way. Help me not to look. Lord God, if this makes me sin, cut it off. And then at some point in maturity, as you mature in Christ, the Lord will hand you your own pruning shears. You will begin to have to prune yourself. There are some things that cannot be here.
Yeah.
Because I, in my immaturity, always was like, well, God, if you don't want me to have it, just take it. Just take it from me. And he would do that sometimes. He's like, Quita, at this stage, you're going to have to give it up. I'm not taking this by force from you. In your maturity, it has to be that you are willing to release things that are not good for you because you want my will. So sometimes I look at things, I'm like, I love that. I can't have that. That's not good for me.
Yeah.
I can look at things and I'm like, I want to be on that. That's not good for me. You know what I mean? And me wanting God means I'm aware. And the closer I grow to him, I should be able to make some of those decisions for myself.
That's right.
Yeah. You're a few years younger than me and definitely in a different life season.
Mm-hmm.
Generationally, I feel like it's different for you guys. Like it's different. Like it's the same concept, but I feel like it's 10 times harder. I feel like when I look at like my daughter who's like almost 11, it is going to be 20 times harder. What's the hope for the future? Like for comparison, like what do you advise the next group? Like, is there a place that we like don't even open that door? Because I think some of us have kind of opened Pandora's box on some things, and you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't even started that.
Personally, I turn myself back to the word. And it's easy for me to say, for me to look at somebody else's social media and compare those things or, to my life. But I always think like, girl, you may not even be called to that. Like for me too, I'd be like, that takes too much work, whatever they be doing. Like, I don't have time within myself. Know yourself. I'm an introvert. I rarely post in general, and I can be a perfectionist. So I'm like, anything that will come out and be like, I don't know if I like that, blah, 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 blah. But I'd say that to say, know what's for you.
Yeah.
And you will know what's for you when you follow him.
Yeah.
And that's just as simple as it can be. And you're like, well, where do I start? Like, just begin to pray.
Yeah.
Pray. And you don't have to pray the most eloquent prayers. Pray what's inside of your heart. God, I don't know. Right now, I'm dealing with comparison, and help me to even find the root of where my first comparison started. Before it was social media, where did that first comparison begin? And I promise you, God will reveal that to you. He will reveal it to you, whether it's in a dream, whether it's in a song, whether it's in a word. He will take you back to I literally had a situation happen where I asked the Lord, show me, God.
Yeah.
And I literally saw myself outside of I was like looking over the situation and could see what was happening when it was so many years ago. And it's like, God will show you those things.
Yeah.
You just have to ask. And here's another part, you got to wait.
Yeah.
And be okay in the waiting, because we're not used to waiting. We're used to, we can DoorDash, it'll be here in 45 minutes. I know the expected wait time.
Yeah.
But with Christ, it's a trusting process. So that's what I say.
Yeah.
Trust him.
No, that's so good.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, this is so good. You have to come back again.
Yes.
Because we can talk about so many other topics
so many
than
things.
this.
My brain is like, no, so good. So good. So good.
But thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And I truly, truly appreciate it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Until next time.